Now, the number of corporate scandals have been piling up in South Africa in recent years. They stretch from Steinhoff to KPMG, VBS, Mutual Bank and McKinsey. Corporate governance, very often said to be at the center of these scandals. Well, it's one of the reasons why Kuseni Dlamini, chairman of Massmart and Aspen Holdings, is in Singapore for a global board leadership summit to address exactly that. He joins us now via Skype. Mr. Dlamini, thanks indeed for talking to us.
Thank you very much indeed, Devin. It's a great pleasure.
So I got to ask you at first, how does getting together with other global leaders help to curb corporate scandals?
It really helps to initiate a global conversation around the issue of governance. As you know, Devin, companies are increasingly under very severe scrutiny because of the breakdowns in governance that you have mentioned. And increasingly, companies are global, and their impact on society is becoming global. And yet they continue to face challenges at local level, starting at industry level, national level, regional level, and indeed ending up at a global level. At this global board leadership summit, attended by mainly chairmen, or chairpersons rather, of global companies, it really brings together leaders from different geographies across North America, Europe, Asia, and Africa to have a common conversation on common issues, but bringing their different experiences, different perspectives, and indeed different expertise. And by so doing, we hope that we'll be able to come out with some fresh thinking and fresh ideas and a better appreciation of international best practice to improve the quality and efficacy of governance of companies. Governance is very important because companies have to be a positive and powerful force for growth and development, and increasingly they're expected to account to a much wider universe of stakeholders than just shareholders. Companies have to be trusted by society. And in order to do so, to gain the trust of society, they've got to make a meaningful and positive contribution to the societies where we operate. These are the issues that we are looking at a global level, what the challenges are and what the implications of some of the current issues around the global trade war are, the rise of cybersecurity and the issues around global talent, and also the issues around intensifying and increasing regulation in different jurisdictions.
Now, while we can appreciate the conversation among these leaders on this issue, you've got to stream in as well to some of the specific local problems. And I bring to the attention, one survey after another suggesting that South Africa's corporate ethics was on a decline. In fact, one survey suggesting that 1 in 4 people believed financial success was more important than doing the right thing. That's astounding.
Yeah, absolutely astounding indeed. And that's the challenge. And I dare say also it's also an opportunity for companies and company leaders to self-examine themselves, self-criticize themselves, and self-reflect in terms of how they discharge their duties. It is very important to be proactive in responding to the perceptions that society has, because business cannot operate in an environment where it's trusted. And I think that there is a lot that needs to be done in order to improve and indeed reduce the trust deficit. There's also a lot that business has to do in order to highlight and showcase the positive and significant contribution it makes in society. In some instances, Devin, business can be its own worst enemy by not being that much effective in highlighting and showcasing and really talking up the positive things that it does. That doesn't mean that we should ignore some of the breakdown in governance that you've mentioned. We need to be able to have a culture of zero tolerance in dealing with breakdowns in governance and corruption and fraud as and when it occurs.
But now, having said that, one other thing that we've seen through these scandals is this gap between what business leaders say and what their company culture promotes. That keeps widening. How do you curb that?
Yeah, that requires setting the right tone from the top and building a corporate culture that is really aligned to the vision that the business articulates. It's not enough just to say the right thing. I think in the ultimate analysis, business is judged by what it does, more in terms of what it does than what it says. because it is what business does that society feels, that stakeholders, whether it's employees, it's customers, it's suppliers, it's the communities, or it's the environment, that they really feel, and that's what impacts them. And I think it's more important to pay more attention in doing the right thing all the time, everywhere where you operate as a business.
Now, just finally, Mr. Dlamini, I mean, some say that there should be much more accountability placed on the board of a scandal-hit company. I wonder if those directors that you are mingling with actually feel that should be the case.
Yeah, I think directors are taking accountability for issues and that go wrong in their companies. And I think there is emerging consensus that the buck stops with the board, and the board has to find early warning mechanisms. And as and when things go wrong, it's not so much whether things go wrong or right, but when they go wrong, it's how you handle them that matters. And in fact, that's how you're judged in the final analysis.
All right, I'm going to have to leave it there. Thanks very much indeed, Kuseni Dlamini, chairman of Mass Smart and Aspen Holdings, speaking to us there from Singapore.